I had never read the Bible from beginning to end. My family was Christian, and I know my grandmother was Baptist, and I had been baptized. I knew that I was a spiritual being, and I believed in God, and that I lived my life to give back to others, and that I had a high ethical standard in life and try to be as honest and authentic as I could be. I pride myself on trying to be good. But for him, I was not good enough. And being Christian was negative. He thought I was... I don't even want to get into what he would say. But he criticized everything. It's like he wanted to strip religion and spirituality from me. I am a survivor. It's strange because some of the techniques he used seem to be some of the techniques that Willie Lynch used to control the slaves, or to teach the slave masters how to control the slaves. Because you can control them mentally, you don't have to use such physical force all the time, right? Him trying to take away my religion and my identity and my spirituality was like the lowest of the low. I mean, he did so many things, but that was quite low. Just questioning everything. And it was one of those things, again, that I always had to fight and argue with. And we would go back and forth. And it wasn't because I said anything was wrong with his religion, even though it differed from mine, because I respect religions. I can respect people that have differences than myself. And I didn't understand why he couldn't try to understand or be tolerant, or why he could be so mean-spirited. And I didn't understand how you could have a religion that's based on hatred. And not saying that his religion was based on hatred, but how he represented it was so hateful and mean-spirited. I think that was one of the things that pushed me more towards wanting to learn more about Christianity and to learn more about the religion of my family, of my grandmother, who was very religious. And I had this conversation with my roommate that I was in a shelter with, and she was so surprised that I had never read the Bible, because she grew up very religious and had read it several times. And I forgot what type of Christian she was. I know she wasn't Baptist. It was like something I never heard of before, or I knew a little about. But she was like always in church. And that was one of the reasons why when she became pregnant as a teenager, it was so shunned in her family. And when her abuser started being abusive, she didn't want to tell her family, because she was like, first I had this child out of wedlock and had a teenage pregnancy, and I completely devastated my mom and everybody at the church. But then to go and tell her that this is going on, it would be bad, so she hid it from her mom. And he was very physically abusive towards her. Very physically abusive. And she would just hide it and say, oh, I fell, or this is how I broke my arm, or whatever. And even when she was in the shelter, she told her mom she was at like the Ronald McDonald's house or something. She was in a shelter for mothers with children. That's what she told her. Like it was for mothers. But she helped encourage me to pick up the Bible. And I started reading it and studying it. And I started from the first page. And I could not understand the King James Version. It was so confusing to me. And then she's the one who said to me, you know, there's different versions of the Bible, right? And I'm like, really? So then I started buying different versions, and the New International Version was a lot easier for me to read. And then she's like, yeah, even on the internet you can go, and there's like Bible.com, and you can, and really introduced me to things. And I started reading and I started studying, and I went to church, and I had this really great experience that made me realize that God was with me through it all. And I think about when I was attacked, and the whole time I was attacked, I had my baby in my arms. And it's one of the reasons why I couldn't fight back, because I was so busy trying to hold my baby. I was holding him so tight because I didn't want to drop him, because if I would have dropped him, he would have died. I mean, on a hard floor, on a concrete. Most of the attacks have been outside. And when I think about how God helped protect me and helped protect my baby from it being more serious than it was, it just, I mean, I can't tell you how I felt. And sometimes we go through experiences and we think it's really bad, and it is, but we don't realize how worse it could be or could have been. And sometimes it's God that's protecting us, and I truly believe that's what the case was with me and my baby. And it was hard for me to go to church because I didn't have a car. I was in a different state, you know. It was just difficult. And I would have these experiences. It was like as soon as I decided that this is what I want to do, I want to study this, I want to learn this, this is where I'm going, God, please help. As soon as I put that prayer out to you, people will come up to me and say things. Like, I was at the doctor's office. I had to take my son for a checkup. And one of the nurses comes in my room and she says, look, I'm not supposed to say this. Please don't tell anybody. But God told me to tell you that there's a Bible study that I attend, and I want to see if you want to attend it too. And I said, oh, you know, I can't attend it because I'm in a shelter and it's really hard for me to get around. I don't have a car. She was like, no, this is a phone session. You can study with us over the phone. People do that? I was like, really? How did you know? Like, this is perfect. And I did. And I remember when I was pregnant with my daughter, every week, once, sometimes twice a week, we would meet for hours, sometimes 2 hours, and we would just study. And it was just like, I kept having these experiences where people would say, well, you know, you could do this or you could do that. And it was just always a way, always a way, always a way out of nowhere. And to me, that was incredible. And when people would come up to me, a lot of times that's what they would start the conversation with. God told me to tell you this. Before I opened up the Bible and I started studying it regularly and really being involved in the Word and things, that had never happened to me before. So I felt like this was a sign, like showing me, like, I hear you, I see you. And sorry, it's hard for me to talk about this. My grandmother was absolutely devastated that I was in this type of relationship. Like, she loves me so much. And she said to me one day, and she just looked like she was hurt, like real hurt. And she says, I prayed to God that He would bring you someone that would help bring you to Him. And then this happens to you. And she was just sitting there crying. And I just went over to her and I said, Mo, you know how stubborn I am. I said maybe I had to get to the point where I was at the lowest of the low, where the only person I had left to turn to was God. Because that's what happened. And I said, I'm so sorry that it had to happen this way, because I know this is not what you had planned for my life. But if there's anything that I am grateful for through that experience that I went through, it is the fact that it helped me build a closer relationship with God. And it helped me to love myself and to see that there was nothing wrong with me. And part of the reason why I put up with that for so long is because for so many years in my life, I felt inadequate and not good enough. And I felt that I was these things that this man was saying to me, that I was stupid, that I was gullible, that who would I be if I don't have somebody there to validate or support me? Like, I was fighting him with my words, but in my spirit, there was part of me that believed some of these crazy, mean, horrible things that he was saying. And as I built myself up and I turned my life over to God, and I looked at my babies and I saw this unconditional love that we have for one another, I knew that's not what love was. And I knew not only did I not love him, that I was staying there because I had no love for myself. And it was almost like I had to be reborn, and I was. And I had to teach myself how to talk to myself, how to love myself. I became natural. I cut the perm out my hair. I started wearing my colored contact lenses. I became a pescatarian. I stopped eating. Well, at that time I wasn't eating any pork or beef, but I just stopped eating like other things and eating healthier and exercising. I had lost a lot of weight. Like, I was just really on this path, and I had to change everything. And I learned to forgive. I learned how to forgive him. Learn how to forgive other people who have abused me in my past, and I learned how to forgive myself. And it wasn't like you do it and then that's end. It's work that I still have to do every day, and sometimes I fall off track, and then I have to come back and center and remember. And the thing that he was initially trying to take from me in the beginning, that religion and that spirituality, by him trying to take it, it came back full force. Everything he tried to take from me, God restored. And I'm a living testimony of that.